That's why we get into this section, superpowers. I wish we had that section on the eval, but we don't. We're all focusing on weaknesses and saying, I wish, we all want to be more well-rounded. And, well, if we're all well-rounded, then we could be a wheel and roll along. If we're not well-rounded, it's a bumpy ride. That was the idea. But with dementia, what if you have to plan for a chronic condition? What if this is something that we can never fix, right? I believe in capitalizing on your strengths, strengthening your strengths. It's like sharpening a spear. And that can go farther than a wheel and penetrate. If you care about that kind of philosophy, you could look at Now Discover Your Strengths or StrengthsFinder 2.0. I really focus on maximizing on my strengths. So I have a weakness. I can't sit still. I'm not going to make myself sit at a desk job because I think it's going to make me a better person. I'm right-brained. I'm sorry. Can't do it. But anyway, superpowers. We do see a superpower, which is not on this list, vision. Vision is a superpower. Don't you dare move my furniture around. Everything's there for a reason. I'm going to get nervous if you move all my stuff around. I use calendars. I write a lot of notes to keep track of stuff. I place things out in the open so I could see them and be aware where they are. I watch your facial expression to see how I'm doing, to get cues on how to move on. And if you're a very expressive sort of person, you have to be careful because you don't want to give the answer away, right? Hey, Mr. Jones, where would you find the cups? I don't know. He always does better with me. Sometimes you have to hide your face behind ASHA forms, which I put in the front of the room, by the way. Where would you find the cups, right? And if I hide my facial expression, maybe my computer or with my Palm Pilot or not looking at him, he might say, why would I want to find a cup? That's stupid. Or, I don't know where they are. Therein you teased out the deficit. That's why they hate the speech therapist. Because you're very good at that, teasing out cues, testing cognitive capability, and compensatory strategies that they've been using. It also means you have to watch your facial expressions when you work with your clients. Right? You have to look calm, pleasant. Don't give that look of productivity, right? That's going to go, or have that form, that paper, and go, they get nervous if you do your documentation in front of them. They're very visual, trying to get a read off of you. And this lady, she came to me at the end of class. I was in New York, and New York, they're kind of like a broody, thoughtful kind of sort. They get this look. This lady comes to me at the end of my class. She goes, I don't know what it is, but this one client, she just doesn't want to work with me. I don't know why. I don't know. It could be maybe that you're looking very thoughtful. I didn't know what to say. I felt like, you look like Guilford Godfrey. I'm going to choke you. That's why she doesn't hear all the verbal stuff. She's reading your body language. 90% of what you say is nonverbal. You must look cute. And if you're not cute, you got to work on it. And if you can't, if you try and you can't look cute, wear a dementia color. Like bright green, yellow. They'll just come to you. Okay? You should have a smile on your face. That's how you look cute. Look non-threatening. Don't puff up. Have a leg here, so I'm here if you need me. Or not. And smile. Don't force it, because that's tense. They're not going to believe you. Okay? Okay? We'll go more on how to look cute later. Residual praxis. I know how to do things that I've always done. That's why they could walk until the very end. They could feed themselves until their last 6 months of life. I know how to play a piano to the very end of my life, way beyond when I remember how to brush my teeth. That's residual motor praxis. I know how to use a mobility device if I had it before my dementia. Give it to me after my dementia. Hello, left foot, right foot walker, left foot, right foot walker. That's new learning. That's a weakness. Residual motor praxis is a strength. That's why they love the rollator, because it pushes like a shopping cart or a stroller. Already in praxis. We just don't like it because we're saying slow down, lock the brakes, slow down, lock the brakes. Right? But here's your question. What's more clinically appropriate? Slow down, lock the brakes, slow down, lock the brakes, or left foot, right foot walker, left foot, right foot walker? I'm not telling you what it is, but you decide. You're doing the same thing. All right, music. I remember all the words to my favorite songs. You might have to sing it twice for me to jump in and sing because of cortical sensory processing. I might remember how to sing long after I forget how to talk. I can still draw, paint, sculpt, say funny things because I'm funny. And I'm honest. They sure are, aren't they? They will tell you exactly what they think. What if they call you evil? Should you go home and reflect on that? No, they're not insightful. That's not a strength. They're just honest. Now, if they call you beautiful, well, sometimes there's clarity. They're usually very strong, unless there's a comorbid problem. They're very intelligent. People with dementia are not dumb. They remember all the things about their profession, their knowledge base, what they taught, stories they used to tell their kids. People with dementia taught me how to cook, make dolmades, spanakopita, pizza, lasagna. I mean, I didn't know how to cook until I started doing ADLs as an OT in the kitchen with my clients with dementia. I learned what to taste means. I didn't know what that meant. Like, of course it's to taste. Resourceful. With their powers combined, they are excellent at escaping locked units. And they don't forget everything. They have superpowers of things that they do remember. They never forget their hair appointments. They never forget that you're the lady with that dog. They never forget that they fell that day or had some sort of traumatic thing happen recently, and they will talk about it for a long time, like who told them they could never drive again, and all circumstances surrounding that. Was it your family member that never forgot? They will never forget. That is my independent access to the community, and it is trauma to me. I will remember it. It's like branding. What does it mean? It means if you yelled at them, they'd follow their precautions. But you can't do that. It's unethical. Right? But if you know it, pain retains. I have my client has a hand synergy. Those kind of hurt, right? So as I'm stretching her, she's like, ow, ow, ow. I go, make sure you stretch it every day. Ow, ow, ow. I go, if you stretch it every day, I won't have to do it. She goes, ow, 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 okay. And then I leave, and every day I walk by her, she goes, I've been stretching it, by the way. You don't have to. Like, good, I don't want to. If it makes me feel bad to hurt you. And she's like, that's why I've been stretching it every day. So if you have to do something painful, then, tell them something important at the time, maybe about their precautions, because sometimes we have to do painful things. Like, as you're giving someone the catheter, say, this is because you have a urinary tract infection. This will help you feel better. But then say, you're doing such a good job. Positive voice and tone. You'll feel so much good when this is done. Because your positive affect will make them feel better. If you're like, oh no, it must be terrible. They'll get like this metallic taste in their mouth and like panic and feel horrible. Don't do that. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change. It is very limited in mid to end stage dementia. Your brain is kind of like an accordion. Sometimes it has room for lots and lots of processing, and sometimes very little. And all day we're practicing this song of opening and closing depending on how much CPU is required to do a task. We're always changing our cerebral bandwidth, so to speak. The faster and more stuff you need to do, the more you close the accordion. The more time you have, the more you have to be thoughtful, the more you can open it. Most of the time we're about here, because you have productivity standards maybe where you work. So this is about early stage dementia. So you might actually feel like you have dementia when we talk about symptoms today. It's because you're acting like someone who has dementia most of the time. But the difference between us and someone who has dementia is neuroplasticity. You could tap into a higher bandwidth when you need to. The person with dementia, their accordion, what we talk about baseline, their accordion can only open this far. It can't open as far as yours can. So they, at their highest level of performance, are looking just like you at your average performance, and then how do you know who has dementia and who doesn't? The only way to tell is to ask that person to perform at a higher level, and when they can't, then that's a red flag that they have a dementia. Does that make sense? All right. And then after lunch, you're about mid-stage dementia. Just so you know. That's when you try to add up all your productivity minutes on the calculator, and every time you get a different number. All right. Please take a 10-minute break. Look at it if you like. All right, welcome back. All right, let's talk. Do you have any questions for me before we go on? About anything? Is it funny enough, or do you want me to make it funnier? Less funny? It's good? It's like just the right amount of funny? Because I'm not very funny. Okay. Now, sure you don't have any questions? Comments? Is the pace okay? All right. Now, you might have to plan for a chronic condition. You might have to plan for something that may get worse and worse over someone's lifespan. And if you're in a rehabby, we make everybody all better kind of mood, like you'd be disappointed. That's what I'm trying to say. And so it's not always about making people get better. A lot of goals rely on compensatory strategies. There are remedial strategies that are non-farm, and I'll give you some ideas for that, like behavioral training, practicing things. You know, brain games will slow down cognitive decline. Any spontaneous clarity that you get is probably because of a medical status change, probably not because we played Sudoku. Okay, but Sudoku's good. It could prevent a cognitive decline. Once you master the metagame, then it's not doing anything for you. You're just really good at it, right? It's like, how do you do with the pink weights in the gym if you're a therapist? Like, you do the pink weights, but it's not really doing anything for you. Multisensory environments are a remedial strategy. You can say after 15 minutes of sensory stimulation or participation in a multisensory environment, client will have improved performance in X. It's kind of like giving someone a Red Bull. You have a temporary increase in awareness, but it just doesn't really last. Caregiver education, so we could always remedy the caregiver and change their approach, try to help that. And then palliative measures. We should always think in a palliative kind of way, caring for this population. Usually they spend the last 2 to 3 years of their life in some sort of one-on-one care. If you're going to order a wheelchair, think of a wheelchair that they can age in. You know, if third-party payers only buy a new chair every 5 years, think your client's life expectancy is probably less than 5 years. So you would want to get a versatile design that can be adapted as the client declines. You know, something that'll definitely, lean back when they don't have the trunk tone anymore. Something that maybe could be moved up or down and add footrests if you need it. So when they understand pedal mobility for their chair, they could get their feet on the floor. When they don't, we get the feet up. Or diversional activities. All right, we're going to start with family interventions because they put the fun in dysfunction. We want to find some ways to talk to them and help them out. What I did is some altered art, just kind of like multi-texture art media to talk about like how I'd feel personally as I went through each stage of the dementia. So, you know, if I were going through my dementia, I really start thinking about the past again, my first marriage, you know, my kids, you know, Vasilopoulos, that was a big part of my life, and that's my oldest daughter, Athena. She's 7 now. She knows everything. I don't know. I already knew everything. She's too young to know everything right now. I didn't know everything. You could fool me as a kid. I believed in Santa until I was 10. You know, it's like I got a bike for Christmas, and I'm like, I believe in Santa because my mom would never buy me a bike. So anyway, it would be all about family, and everyone has their own cultures and backgrounds and ways that they deal with things, but that one's very Greek. That's why I put that one there. All right. Let's talk about starting a family support group. If you don't have one, it is a great idea to start one. It is a wonderful service that you could provide to the community, but also you are advertising to potential customers that will come to you. It will give good word-of-mouth recommendations for the services that your company provides. It's pretty cheap. You could also provide the service to family members of clients that you already work with. So if you're in home care, this could be something that you do in additional to your foot visit, your foot clinics. You know, maybe you go to ALFs to do a 1-hour support group once a week, or nursing home, maybe you have people come in, or in ALF, maybe you want to do this kind of service where you work. We'll talk a little bit more about caregiver burden, and I will give you labs and resources for activity ideas and courses that you could kind of teach in 10 minutes for family support groups. Then a little bit on respite and prevention. Families are worried that they're going to get dementia because their loved one has it too, and we may want to talk about some preventative strategies. Chances are they're not going to get it. Dementia is mostly sporadic. It just spontaneously happens. There are only a very few genetic dementias that are passed down, and there's such a small percentage. But familial Alzheimer's is about 10% of Alzheimer's cases. If the parent was diagnosed between the age of 30 and 65, then the children have a 50-50 chance of inheritance, and they could take a genetic test to see if they'll get it. That's a personal choice. Huntington's is genetic, and Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, it's already a 1 in a million chance of getting it, but there is a familial onset which occurs in 10% of those cases, which is a 1 in a million chance of getting. So it's kind of tough to know if it really is familial or sporadic. All right. What are they going through, the family, kind of developmentally? It's kind of an off-time event on their life, so we see that we have some different types of emotions that the family goes through. We always go through guilt. You know, we all have high expectations for what we expect of ourselves and how to help other people. And even if I was completely mature and said, hey, Mom, you're going to go into a nursing home, you know, just so you know ahead of time. You know, that I'm pretty well adjusted. I know that ahead of time, all right? But I'm still going to feel bad. I'm still going to feel really bad because I was kidding. Like, I said it, but everyone kind of hopes that they could do something. But some people just, like, care and care for people until they burn themselves out, and then they're just done. That's how a lot of people care too. That's part of empathy drain. I will give and give and give until I have nothing left to give, and I'm done, and then you can go, and then I don't feel bad about it anymore. Most caregivers think like that, skilled or not. Therapists, nurse assistants, family caregivers, we're all like that. You stick with a job you don't like, you punch out, you do your paperwork, you go there until finally you're like, I'm done, and they're like, we'll give you a raise. You're like, no, I'm done. I'm just going to the other place. Or they give you the raise and you stay there for like another month. But like when you're done, right? That's how caregivers kind of think. But except for men. Men aren't like that. Men will delegate, coordinate, start things, kind of like manage it, and men are more apt to take a break. They're more likely to step back, so they'll actually do the caregiving role a little bit longer because they get that respite, and the respite refills the cup. Men and women view caregiving in a very different way. Women invest a lot of emotions. I mean, men do too, but they see it as like sticking out a relationship. It's a different way of thinking. We'll talk a little bit more about spousal caregivers too. But grieving, I go through all of the stages of grieving. Every single time my loved one has a physical or cognitive status change, I go through all of Kubler-Ross's stages. Denial, anger, bargaining, and you as skilled caregivers will have to deal with that. And sometimes people deal with many of them at the same time. Some of them go through all of them. Some of them just do one and go back and forth. All right. As a caregiver, you have a lot of stuff to do, and you have to close the accordion to get it done. And when people close their accordion to be productive, when we end up just going on our regular engine speed, we have to make a lot of assumptions to get things done. So think that you're a computer, right? And sometimes your computer says, do you have Microsoft Outlook? Anyone have Microsoft Outlook? Sometimes it says, Microsoft Outlook isn't running efficiently. Could we compress the files? So that we could. We have to compress files all the time in order to function. And there are some common ways that we do that, and they are called mental models. Mental models are necessary for us to make sense of the world, make quick choices for the cause and effect of what we do, and really help us have an understanding and meaning of what's occurring around us. Research has shown that caregivers think in 4 major mental models. 1, golden rule. I want to treat people the way I would like to be treated. You ever do that at work? Ever do that? Motherwit. I will treat my client like my own family member. You ever give advice that you might probably also give your family to your client? Right. Medical model. There's a name for everything, and someday there will be a cure. Social model. Everyone has the right to be valued and involved in their local community, and I will remove all psychological and physical barriers to keep them from doing that. They're all boxes. They're all files, and they're kind of incomplete thoughts, but they just kind of like help us get things done. But they're not complete, and if we always keep the accordion closed, it could be kind of damaging. For example, you have a compressed file folder called Wild Animals. Can you tell me what's on the cover? Give me some ideas of wild animals. Just shout them out. What? Elephant. Tiger. Bear. Alligator. Lion. Oh my. Okay. And then you open up the folder, you decompress the files, and it says, not all wild animals are big and exotic or ferocious. There are other wild animals, like birds and bunnies, right? But when we have to think fast, we got the file folder that goes, right? Because we got to get stuff done. We have to learn how to do that. Children don't do that. That's why they never get anything done. They always keep it open. They're always thinking of every possibility and what-if scenario because they're busy activating neurons. It's kind of sad because it's hard to be creative if we have to close it. But sometimes you need to. So if someone has a closed box and they're thinking in their mental model, you could either open the box, like define it, and get them to think out of it. Not everybody likes to be treated the way you like to be treated. Some people have different expectations. Or not everybody's very nice to their family. Maybe it's not a good guideline to go by. But some people are stuck in the box, and you have to talk to them while they're in the box. Golden rule. We're having a food lab. Everybody come down to my office. We're going to talk about why we want to sweeten up our client's food who has dementia. And I'll take a russet potato and a red delicious apple, and I chop them into cubes. I peel them and I chop them into cubes, and we have a blindfold taste test. And I have everybody pinch their nose, and they can eat a potato, and they can eat an apple. And I say, with diminished smell, can you tell me which one was the potato? Usually, people can't. And I would say, with diminished smell, then that means we would want to flavor enhance the food so that our client could enjoy it better, right? I'm using the golden rule to teach people by putting their shoes, them in other people's shoes. Mother wit. Now, I see that with lay caregivers all the time. When people get sick, I'm going to act motherly. You're going to lay down right here. You got a blanket. I'm going to bring you some soup, and it's all going to be okay, honey. Right? We all just start doing that, and we start to see the lay caregiver go, he's my child. He's like my kid. He's like my adopted kid. And, if you want your kids to listen to you, sometimes you got to, let them win sometimes, but sometimes I let them win. And you are in danger of infantizing the client if you're treating them like a kid and you're being all kind of motherly, because, we cover for our own family members. Do you know what people do with their family? If you have dementia in your family, you'll be in denial for a very long time. People who have smart family members, they take even longer to admit that their loved one has dementia. People have daughters and sons that are doctors, therapists, nurses. They're not admitting it, right? If you want to treat your client like your own family member, then we might be covering for disabilities that people have and making mistakes by making excuses for them. You know what I mean? So I might want to talk to somebody in their box if that's how they're thinking. I might say, because think of the mom. She's like, Billy's a good kid. I just think the teacher has it in for him. And Billy's had 26 suspensions this year. We might see a spouse say, my wife is just fine. But in the afternoon, she accuses him of being an imposter, or when he tries to bathe her in the tub, she's scratching or yelling at him. See? So I might have to work with people when they're in their boxes. I might say, well, the client, I tell her, Meals on Wheels, right? And she goes, I'm not doing Meals on Wheels. I've been cooking for myself for 50 years, and Meals on Wheels is disgusting. And I say, okay, well, fine. Let's go cook in the kitchen. We're going to bake some cookies. And I tell the family, I go, did you ever see my big fat Greek wedding? Yeah. And I go, well, the wife, the mother, she goes, the man, he's the head of the family, right? But the woman, she's the neck. She can turn the head any way she wants, right? I have to make things her idea, and sometimes I have to do a little bit of sabotage so she'll come up with the idea on her own. So I let her burn the cookies. I know you wanted cookies, so that's the sad part. You don't get cookies that way. But I let her burn the cookies, and then I show her the tray of cookies, and she goes, how'd those cookies come out? And I go, not very good. And you make this face. Meals on Wheels, right? Meals on Wheels, because this isn't good food, right? And she goes, well, I didn't sleep very well last night, and you're standing over me, and I don't feel good, and there's so much pressure. And I go, I know. There's a lot going on. And when all of this resolves, maybe you won't need Meals on Wheels. But for now, you're right. There's a lot going on. Meals on Wheels. So I kind of get into her head. And it's the same way that I raise my kids. It's the same way that I raise my kids. My daughter, she's like, Mommy, you like my outfit? I'm like, honey, it's sweatpants and a sweatshirt. It's like 90 degrees outside. But it's from Justice. Fine, if you go outside, why don't you just go play for 10 minutes? And if you still feel that way, you could wear your justice outfit, honey. It's like, fine, I will. And I will. Girl changes into shorts and a t-shirt because it's more stylish. It was a great idea that you had. Sometimes I got to go through the back door to get stuff done, make it other people's ideas. Nobody likes to be told what to do at all ages.